Welcome back, rock stars. Ricky Rocks coming at you once again from the vault. You know, we love to talk about toys here. I like to talk about action figures. Something I like to do a lot that I've only talked a little bit about so far is I like to do some custom action figures. We talked a little bit about them here on the Custom Corner, but I actually work on a lot behind the scenes. I don't really talk about them too much because I'm so busy doing all my other things, but I do spend a lot of time getting action figures and repainting them, doing some parts here and there. I'm not fantastic at it. I'm pretty basic yet, but it's something I like to do, something I have a good time with, and you've seen a little bit of that in the past. But today I want to talk about one of my most recent and most exciting custom projects. So, as everybody should know by now, I'm a huge, huge fan of Superman. Always was, always have been since day one. And I try and get every Superman figure I can get my hands on. And, depending, it doesn't matter, modern age, silver age, golden age, first appearance, doesn't matter to me. I'm all about it. And we talked recently about some Batman figures. We talked about the Legacy Edition line from Mattel, where they did some various Batman characters in different iconic forms. They did first appearance Batman, Golden Age Joker, Golden Age Batman, all that good stuff. But as great as those figures were, collecting them, it always made me mad that Mattel didn't do a similar line for Superman, because they really could have. And they did a lot of great Superman figures while they had the license. Mattel did a lot of great Superman figures. Even the basic ones, even the very basic, simple Superman action figure from Mattel that they used and reused in various packages and box sets a million times. It's a great figure. I love this Superman figure. It's great on its own, and it comes in really handy for customs because it is just so great at being a very basic Superman figure on every level. But the thing is, Mattel didn't give us a whole lot of variance when it came to Superman. They reused this figure a lot, but at most it would have like a different head or something. Like it would either have long hair, or maybe he'd have red eyes for heat vision, or something like that. But they didn't go as far into Superman as they did with Batman. They didn't do first appearance Superman the way DC Direct did. They didn't do any of the Silver Age stuff like DC Direct did. That was one of the things about Mattel that always annoyed me, because DC Direct did pretty much every single version of Superman that you could think of as an action figure. From his first appearance all the way up through the modern day, and everything in between, the Elseworld stories. If there was a version of Superman out there, whether it was drawn by Kurt Swan, or Jack Kirby, or John Byrne, or Jim Lee, or Joe Shuster, if there was a Superman, DC Direct did an action figure of it. And Mattel, I felt, for as great as their DC run was, I felt like they kind of dropped the ball a little bit with Superman, because while they did do some great Superman and Superman-related figures, they didn't go as far as they could have and should have. They did a lot with Batman. They could have done a lot more with Superman, but what can you do? But it gives people like me the opportunity to pick up the slack, Jack, and to kind of fill in some of those gaps ourselves. Now, obviously, my favorite version of Superman is the one from 86 on through the 90s, John Byrne, Dan Jurgens, and this figure actually is a really great representation of that very basic, classic, timeless version of Superman. It's modern yet classic in its own way. But there's a really, really popular version of Superman that doesn't get a lot of action figure attention from anybody, unfortunately, and it's one of the ones I grew up on most as a kid. It was the Superman from the 1940s FLEISCHER animated series that would play in movie theaters back from 1941 through 1943. FLEISCHER Studios did the first, I think, 9 animated shorts that would play in the movie theaters before the actual movie would come on. And then they had a huge contract dispute. It was a very messy situation, but then Famous Studios took over, and they produced an additional 8 animated shorts, which were a little bit more racially insensitive, a little bit more culturally controversial. Not often as well remembered as the original Fleischer series, but they're generally considered to be the same vein. They're distributed by the same parent group, you want to say. But in any case, this is a version of Superman that was very prominent when I was a kid. No, I didn't grow up in the 40s, I'm not that old, but when I was a kid, growing up on Superman and trying to get my hands on as much Superman content as I could, you'd go to the video store or the flea market and you would find hundreds of videotapes of these cartoons repackaged because they are in the public domain. Legally, anybody can slap a label on these cartoons and sell them. Anybody can because of a loophole back in 1942. You can read about that. So, yeah, since they're in the public domain, these things were very prevalent, and I remember every time I went to the store for anything, whether it was going to Pathmark to buy groceries, if they had a section that sold videos, you'd see a video for these cartoons. If you went to the flea market, if the guy had a box full of old cartoon VHS tapes, he had some of these in different packaging. Didn't matter where you went. And if you went to the video store to rent something, I remember vividly being 4 years old, 5 years old, and renting a VCR and a stack of Fleischer Superman animated videotapes to keep myself busy on a trip to my grandma's or whatever. I watched these cartoons in different forms all throughout my childhood. Like, it was to the point where, I mean, if you had like a VCR at all and you cared about Superman, you would rent or buy these videos over and over again just to get the different covers and everything like that, because I still have them in a box somewhere, come to think of it. I have like probably 20 different videotapes of these same cartoons. DVDs too. These are just the ones with the artwork I wanted to show off. They had like 5 or 6 different DVDs and Blu-rays of this stuff too. It's crazy. I buy some of them just to look at the artwork because I find some of the packaging pretty neat and pretty clever. But yeah, so I mean these cartoons would come on Saturday mornings sometimes on like some of the syndicated networks where they're trying to fill programming. If you ever bought one of those videos when you were a kid, it was like 6 hours of classic cartoons. It would mostly be the old Popeyes and the old Fleischer Superman stuff with some old like Bugs Bunny sprinkled in there. Crazy stuff. But for as popular as they were and for as much as I watched these cartoons as a kid, they still hold up to this day as some of the best animation that's ever been done. I mean, these are exciting cartoons to watch. It's a little bit different Superman than the one we're used to. He doesn't have the same powers yet. He's not quite as strong or as indestructible. He can't always fly, this and that. But the look and the color and the sound of these cartoons were so far ahead of their time. With the rotoscoped animation and the orchestral soundtrack and just the painted backgrounds, there's so much to love about these cartoons. But for as great as they are, for as iconic as they are, and as important to pop culture history as they are, surprisingly, they don't really get a lot of attention in action figure form. Now, I know there's been a couple instances. There's a recent box set that recently came out of Fleischer Superman, and I want to say the giant robot, the Mechanical Monsters, I think it was. Little diorama with the little 3 3/4 inch figure. That looks great. I can't wait to buy that. But 6 and 7 inch scale, or even 4 or 5 inch scale, forget about it. They never did really too much of this look. And I think it's a great look for Superman. I think it's a great look with the S, the gold border on the black background. It's different, but it's very striking, and it's a version of Superman I saw a lot of as a kid. So to me, it was just as normal as the basic look. When I was 2, 3, 4, I pretty much looked at these two versions of Superman all the time equally. So if they had ever made action figures of this version of Superman, I definitely would have bought them. But they didn't really, so as usual, when somebody doesn't give me what I want, I have to go out and take what I want or make what I want. And that's what I decided to do in this case. So, using my humble talents, which are still very much in the basics stage, I decided that I was going to do a relatively simple custom, which turned out to be, it wasn't hard. It wasn't that hard, but it was a little bit more work than I thought I was going to have to do, but it wasn't that bad. I started with this basic Superman figure, just like this. You can find these online pretty easily, but because it is Superman, any Superman figure is always going to be relatively expensive, so it's going to be even loose anywhere from like $20 to $40 probably. I would do more Superman customs if not for the fact that a lot of the figures are kind of up there just to take them apart and repaint them. But, if you got it and you want it, do it, right? So, luckily I've already got plenty of these, so I can always pick up one to spare, or I could always spare one. This one is my basic one I keep on display. I love it. It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's a great looking Superman figure. We're going to talk about the DC Universe Classics line one of these days. But so I started with this figure, and I decided I was going to try my hand at taking it back to 1941. Now, we're going to be back in just a second, and you're going to get to see how good I was able to do. Did I shit the bed, or is it awesome? Let's find out. Alright, so again, you may have in this or other videos, you may have seen him hanging out in the background, but this is him up close and personal. This is my custom, hand-painted, 1941 FLEISCHER era Superman action figure. Now, this is a full repaint. Every inch of this figure was repainted by hand, by me. The head is a custom I bought off eBay. All I had to do was paint over it. It came unpainted. I painted over it with some flesh tone, and just like the cartoon, I wanted to keep the face lines very simple and very basic. So thus the lines for eyes and very simplistic line work, but I think it looks really good, really accurate to the cartoon. I tried to get the S as close as I could. It looks different in some of the different cartoons as far as, where the S meets the border and things like that, but, I tried to be pretty accurate to how I see it done most of the time. The belt most often is like a dark red, but you do see it sometimes in black, and I think the black belt looks better against the gold buckle. So I decided to go with that, even though the red belt would be a little bit more authentic technically. I said, I'll just go with what looks better in this case. The cape, I had to paint over the yellow S on the back, which took quite a few layers of red. If you've ever done a custom and you've hand painted anything with red paint, you know that it goes on very thin. It takes a lot of layers to get anything to stick, and that proved to be true in this case, but I think it came out really great. You can't tell, I don't think, that the yellow S was ever there. But yeah, even though the trunks and boots, the red was already, it's the same shade. I just wanted to make sure there was no tears or scuffs in the red. I wanted it all to be even, so I went over all of that as well. The blue is just a regular royal blue. I wanted it to be slightly lighter blue than the standard Superman figures costume, so I decided to do that. And I think it's just a little bit brighter, it looks a little bit better. So yeah, that I think came out really good. Much better than I expected it to, at any rate. The head, I bought, the head was a little wider than the neck. I had to do the trick with the hot glue gun, put some glue in the head, stick it on the neck peg, move it around a little bit, and then let it sit. And it went on pretty good. It's a tiny bit loose. I'll show you in a minute when I go hands-on with it. But yeah, I think I think, honestly, humbly, in my own personal opinion, I love the way this came out. I was really excited to get my hands on it. As soon as the paint dried and the sealant dried, I sprayed it with a matte sealant to just make sure the paint stays. You should always do that, in my opinion, so your paint doesn't peel or rub off, because it can, especially if you live in a warmer place. And sometimes it gets hot in the vault, so I like my figures to keep their paint, so I always give them a lick of the spray sealant. But yeah, as soon as it was dry, I was moving them around and posing them, and I still, every once in a while, I'm sitting playing video games, and he'll catch my eye, and it's like, man, I gotta get my hands on this guy. And yeah, I love it. I think it's great. So hopefully you do too. We're gonna come back in just a second, but yeah, up close and personal with the Man of Steel, the Man of Tomorrow, Superman. Gotta love it. Fleischer style. Like I said, I grew up with this guy, so to me, this is a huge deal. Check it out. Alright, like I said, this figure was a real passion project for me. As soon as I started working on DC Universe Classics figures from Mattel, as soon as I started getting my hands on some of them, I said, man, I can't wait to do some custom Superman figures. And this was the first one I managed to finish. This was one of the very first ones on my mind because, like I said, it aggravated me that they didn't give Superman the same treatment they did Batman as far as the Legacy Edition line. They didn't do like Action Comics #1 or any of that, which McFarlane recently did a beautiful Action Comics #1 Superman, which in itself isn't perfect, but we'll talk about that figure real soon because I just got him and it's awesome. But yeah, they didn't do anything they could have, like they could have done a Fleischer Superman. And I did this one just because I like this look better than the Action Comics #1 look. I am going to do an Action Comics #1 Superman Mattel, but I wanted to do this one first because I just prefer the look of the black and gold and red S shield and the black belt. I mean, a lot of people don't know, but the Kingdom Come Superman, with the S shield being red over black and the black and gold belt, that was a deliberate callback to the Fleischer Superman that Alex Ross decided to do. So that's a neat piece of trivia right there. So I always liked that a lot. I thought it was very striking. So when I got myself a loose DC Universe Classic Superman to work on, I had to figure like what kind of figure was I going to make. And I said, yeah, I'll do this one first because it's just a much better look in my opinion than, the S shield that they had in Action #1. It was kind of weird looking and the boots were weird, and I'm going to do that figure real soon, and I'm probably even going to use the same head. I ordered another head from the same guy. I can't remember his name, or I tell you, but he's a guy who works out of Jersey here, and he does a lot of great heads on eBay, and I was able to get it to stay on. It is loose, like it's real loose. The good thing about that is that it'll go all the way around. The bad thing is it really doesn't want to like stay looking up. Like it's really loose, but it's not going to come off. I wouldn't like, swing him around by his head or anything, but for my first time doing that with a figurehead, because I've done head swaps in the past, but they were usually heads from the same line, so I would just have to like heat them up, pop them off, pop them on, and that was it. Since this is a custom head that somebody 3D printed, I had to use the glue to make it fit in the neck. But it goes on, and I think it fits really well. And it really completes the look. Again, I mean, I wasn't just going to take the standard Superman head and repaint that. I mean, I wanted it to look completely like the animated Superman. I wanted to really make it look just like the old cartoons as much as I could, and I don't know, I think I got pretty close. What do you think? I think if that ain't like right up on there, I don't know, man. Humbly, I think I did a pretty good job with this figure. It was really fun to do. It looks like it was easy, but it definitely took a lot of layers of paint between the blue and the red. You could see the blue is a little bit brighter. They're both royal blue, but one is a little bit, like, even within hue, you have tint, right? I mean, again, my 6th grade art class stuff. I was really good in art class. But yeah, like, even within the royal blue, you have different shades of it, right? So, you know, I wanted it to look a little bit brighter like the cartoon. The red's pretty much the same shade of red, so that made it easy to match, thankfully. As you can see, I did the cape up, and I think I did a pretty good job on that. Took a lot of layers to get it that far. Many layers of red. But that's something you gotta just kind of deal with and live with sometimes. But yeah, I started with regular, basic DC Universe Classic Superman and came up with this one. It is an easy custom to do. I definitely recommend doing one yourself to fill in the holes in your collection. I am going to be doing quite a few Superman customs to give myself all the gifts Mattel didn't see fit to give me. I'm going to do the Action Comics one. I'm going to do a few different ones for sure. But I want to nail this one first because this is one of my favorite looks for the character, going all the way back to when I was a kid. And I think it's about as good as you can get. Like I said, the head, it's a Bruce Wayne head. It's labeled that, but I think it looks perfect for 1940s or Action Comics #1 Superman. That's when I saw it. I'll put a link in the description to the guy's eBay store, because his name escapes me now, but his stuff is great, and definitely recommend checking him out. But yeah, so when I saw the head, I said, that is a Fleischer Superman if I ever saw one. I'm going to paint it that way. And so that's what I came up with. So yeah, I think going from the beginning to the modern like that, I think it's a really nice contrast, but you can see right from the beginning where the roots were. You know, these figures are really nice to work on. I can say that despite all the articulation in a DC Universe Classics figure, they do the seams in a way where you can get the paint in there, and, you know, they leave room for you to do that where it's not necessarily going to rub off or hurt the paint. Like some figures that have a lot of articulation, you got to worry a lot about rub and everything like that. And even inside the joints here, like I painted those over and they came out fine. I did use, like I said, a couple layers of sealant on some of the joints. I had to paint it, seal it, move it around a little bit to see where it would chip off, and then I would go back in and paint over it and give it another little hit of the sealant. So it looks pretty good right now. You got to know, if you're getting into this kind of stuff and you're doing these kind of customs yourself, I want you to know it's going to take more layers and more hits of the brush than you think to get even the simplest stuff to look right. Don't get discouraged. It's all part of the process. Trust the process, trust your hand, and just, you know, you're going to have to go back and do detailing. You're going to have to go back and fill in spots where it got chipped before it looks perfect. You're going to have to do that. And even this one's not perfect. Like, I'm sure there's spots where, like this could have been a little straighter or whatever, you know. But I really did try to get in there as close as I can. You got to have a brush set with a lot of different points. Like, you got to have fine point, medium point, wide point. Like, I'm no expert on brushes, but just, I go to the supply store and I just get a kit that's got, you know, like 15, 20 different brushes, and you're pretty well set. You're going to have to get more every once in a while, but they're cheap, you know. And it's worth the effort, though, to have something like this. I don't think it looks still perfect or nothing, but it's good for what I need it for, which is really nothing. But I think it looks great when like I said, when I see him on the shelf next to my other characters. Sometimes I just can't help but grab them and start messing around with them because I just love this figure so much. Like, I'm going to get some chains, right? I'm going to have them doing the... I should have done that before I did this video, but I couldn't wait to show them off. But I should do, like, the busting out of the chains thing. I'm definitely going to do that. That's going to be so cool. But, yeah, I mean... I want to talk about old school, man. I mean, let's take it back. Let's take it back to the beginning. Let's take it back to 40s, right? You got the world's finest right here. You know, from Mattel. Gotta love it, right? I mean, I shouldn't have had to do the work for him, but I'm glad I did. It was a fun thing to do. It took me a few days to do all the paint and everything. But I mean, you know, you got, you know, that's, oh man. I just thought of doing this right this second, and like, wow, I'm so glad I did. That is so cool. Doesn't get much better than that, man. And then you got this guy, like, what the hell did I walk into? You know? Oh man. But yeah, I'm always talking about bringing old school to new school, man. And that's part of why doing this video made me want to do this video, because we're taking it back to the 30s and 40s, and I couldn't not do this FLEISCHER Superman. So, you know, like I said, we're going to be looking at a lot more stuff on the custom corner, because I've been doing a lot. I've just been too busy to like talk about all of it with you, but we are going to be coming back. We're going to be talking about some really awesome and exciting projects I've been doing, because I've actually got customs to show you from Kenner, from Toy Biz, from Mattel. We're going to be looking at some really cool stuff on the custom corner. So since I hadn't done one in a while, I wanted to do this one because this one is really special to me. Like, you know, I always get a little bit emotionally attached to all the customs I do because I spend so much time working on them. But this one, to me, is really special. And I'm really excited with how it came out. And this guy is going to have a permanent place of honor on my shelf. And having him completed got me excited to jump right into my next Superman custom, which I'll be showing you really soon, because I know that I'm just going to keep getting better at it. And it's been a journey. It's been a good journey. And yeah, this is definitely going to have a permanent place of honor on my shelf with all my other Superman figures, because, you know, I'm almost glad that Mattel didn't bother, because it gave me the opportunity to do it my way and have it come out like this. I'm really happy with it. So I just wanted to share this with you guys. Hopefully you had fun looking at it, and hopefully it inspired you to go out and make your own, because this guy is not hard to find, or this body, this Superman body, is not hard to find anywhere on eBay. It's just a matter of, you know, do you want to pay what it is online. But, you know, the figure itself is not hard to do. I'll put a link in the description for where I got this awesome custom head. You know, paints, I used a variety of brands. I mean, I really swear by testers the most, but so that's what I used predominantly. But, you know, you got to mix it up a little bit sometimes. I use so many different brands of paint. As long as you have a good sealant, you know, as long as you seal it well, even if you can't afford fancy paints, you know, or you don't want to spend money on fancy paints, some of the colors will pop a little bit better. But, you know, I'm giving you some just tips here. Don't be discouraged. If you're at Walmart and you got to buy the cheap colors, you know, the cheap paints, just to have a variety of colors or whatever, don't let anybody tell you not to do that. It might not be as good, but it'll be good enough. And if you seal it well, you won't have to worry about chipping or nothing like that. I do it all the time. This is mostly tester stuff, though, 99% of it. And I am very glad that I was able to, you know, make it look as good as it is. I hope that you guys go out and do it your way and have a great time doing it, because I sure had a blast doing this guy. I got a list of customs I started doing, and I hope to finish soon. And on the list of ones I got to do, I got like a dozen different Superman customs. So you guys got a lot to look forward to, because it's not just that. There's a lot of other stuff too. It's a lot of fun. And hopefully seeing my stuff gets you guys inspired to do your stuff. I want to see your stuff. You know, if you want to show up pictures in the comments or whatever, I'll look at them. Or, you know, if you want to link me to your bloggy or whatever, I'll do that if I got time. So, like, share, subscribe, do the deal. Ricky Rocks coming at you from the custom corner. We're going to take it home. Just couldn't help but show off my very exciting, amazing, dynamic, awesome, and iconic 1940s FLEISCHER animated Superman. Ricky Rocks signing off. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to let him breathe. And don't forget to do your own. We'll see you next time.